Malik's eyes grew weary of life after each clash with Samira. She noticed how he sharpened his battered pocket knife and looked at Ebony, the old Siberian husky with a muzzle outlined in white. "We can't keep feeding something that brings nothing in return," Samira complained, her voice as cold as falling snow against Malik's heart. Ebony's last litter had been small and sickly. Not even farmers wanted those scrawny pups. But there was one pup, Orion, that caught Malik's eye with his strange silvery green gaze. Ebony's teeth were worn and her steps had become unsteady. Yet a mysterious tenacity still shimmered in her eyes. Samira didn't want to waste any more food on a dog that could neither hunt nor breed. "You think Orion's going to fill our pockets with gold?" she sneered. Malik's answer was quiet, his gaze still on the small bundle of a puppy. "He deserves a chance," he said, as though he wanted to ensure justice for Ebony by safeguarding this new life. Samira's ridicule was harsh, yet Malik couldn't deny his inexplicable compassion for the old dog and her last remaining pup. The cabin they lived in was small, and winter was creeping in with icy fingers that slipped through every crack in the wooden boards. Finally, on a day when dark, soot-colored clouds gathered, Malik made his choice. He took Ebony and Orion and silently slipped into the forest, passing trees whose branches stretched out like claws. By a massive pine, he fastened a rope around Ebony's neck and tied her firmly to an exposed root. Orion, too young to understand, whimpered and peered at his mother with shining eyes. Malik felt his own heart tighten in his chest. Ebony looked up at him, her trust unbroken despite his treacherous act. "I'm sorry," he whispered before tucking Orion under his arm and running off, while Ebony's low howl resonated through the damp air. The rain began to fall, first softly, then in torrents that soaked her coat. Ebony was left cold and abandoned, her nails scratching at the bark in a futile attempt to break free. Hours dragged toward twilight. Her loyalty ran so deep that she still waited, as though Malik might return. Her stomach growled and her limbs trembled. When her human did not come back, she started gnawing on the rope. Each strand tasted bitter on her tongue. At last the rope snapped. Ebony, drenched and exhausted, glanced just once toward where Malik had disappeared. But Orion, her blood, her hope, was gone, taken by the man who had betrayed her. She limped through the storm, step by step, across mud and rocks. The forest swallowed her, and she survived only by reviving her old instincts. A soft whimper, a wary sniff, a timid vigilance of every noise in the dark. She began hunting small rodents, rabbits, and sometimes dug up roots, but loneliness followed her like a shadow. A few days later, she came across a damp hollow, where 3 half-starved wolf pups lay curled up. Their mother had likely been driven away by hunters, or killed by a predator. Something in Ebony stirred. She, who had been abandoned, now wanted to save. Her milk was nearly dry, but her warmth and heartbeat soothed the pups. Over time, she taught them how to sniff out scents, to prick up their ears at the slightest sound, to work together. Ebony's body was worn, yet a deep sense of duty pushed her forward. She advanced to bigger prey, sometimes backing down from a dangerous boar or a furious badger, but she never gave up. The pups grew and sharpened their teeth. Ebony, once lonely and embittered, found hope again. She was needed. Her heart, forsaken by people, now beat for wolves. When the first snow fell, pups were already agile and strong, but a new danger entered their territory. Another wolf pack, large and domineering. Ebony and her 3 charges were surrounded, a low growl rumbling from the alpha's chest. His teeth gleamed like blades, his eyes cold as granite. Resolute, Ebony positioned herself between her pups and the threat. Her defense was fierce, old claws and blunt teeth, but driven by a burning spirit that made even these wild wolves hesitate. The alpha studied her, smelling the trace of domestic blood in her fur. Yet there was something more, an unbreakable loyalty that resonated with his own pack instinct. With a low growl, he flattened his ears and commanded his pack to stand down. They accepted Ebony not as a domesticated dog, but as an unexpectedly fearless ally. In that bitter, white wilderness, she found a new family, a place where her protective love would not be scorned or betrayed. As the clouds broke over the ridge and a rare sunbeam fell upon Ebony and the pups, she closed her eyes and thought briefly of Orion. Would he remember how she'd licked his face, how she had protected him? Would Malik ever feel regret? But she no longer looked back. Her path now lay ahead with this new pack, with the pups she had saved from certain death. Ebony carried a fire in her own heart that even the coldest snowfall could not extinguish.